Hello, this is Mesh, and welcome to this review recap of Westworld Season 2, Episode 4. So going forward, this will contain spoilers. So Episode 4, wow, what an amazing episode. Westworld just kicked up another gear for me. We have returning characters, character reveals, massive story confirmations, incredible. Elsie is back, Grace is William's daughter, Delos are trying to implant consciousness into hosts. Amazing. So there's three main story arcs within this episode, and they all jump around all over the place. Mainly thanks to Bernard's damaged memory function, so thanks for that, Bernard. So let's start with James Delos. So these scenes were really amazing. It was funny as well, they were all foreshadowed in the starting recap with Ford saying, resurrecting the dead, so call forth Lazarus from his cave, so I thought that was quite amusing. So these James Delos scenes for me I thought were really fantastic. This location was one, or perhaps one of many locations that are recreating the body of James Delos and building the control units with James Delos' consciousness within them. So James passed away from the disease that he was fighting. Then William must have gone about on his way to remake or recreate James, as one would assume James is requested. So the acting was stunning with these scenes. So when James was informed about what occurred to his family, very moving scenes, very powerful. We learnt so much as well in these scenes about what happened to the Delos family. So after James died, we find out that his wife passed away as well a couple of years later from a stroke. Also, we find out that Logan has died from a drug overdose. And of course, we already knew about William's wife, but she died from a suicide. But this is Westworld, so take it all with a grain of salt. Also, really interesting information about how far they have gone with technology. So what we learnt with these scenes, this has taken 30 years in the making to get James Delos up to this point. So they have tried 149 times to create him and get it right. And their best attempt is 35 days. Interesting as well about how they're saying the cognitive plateau. It is the issue they keep stumbling across. So they're saying the mind is, it's like implanting the mind, it's like an organ. And the description of the body rejecting it. And then William describing it's not really the body rejecting it, it is the mind is rejecting reality. And you can see that as well, which was very interesting to watch. So in my opinion, James could have survived in that little bunker without human interaction for a long time. But as soon as he's made aware of his recreation as a host, or made aware of his current reality, that is when his mind starts rejecting it. And the final conversation as well between William and James is brutally honest. So who wants to live forever? And he's so frank about his personality, saying you're better off dead, people don't miss you, they prefer your memory. Telling him that his daughter killed herself. Once again, fantastic acting in these scenes. The world is better off without you and without me. Then he starts shouting for his son about, started shouting, Logan, Logan, telling him, and then William tells him Logan overdosed. Really momentous scenes. It was quite incredible. Okay, now on to the next main story arc in this episode. So Elsie is back. Fantastic to see her back in the show, where she has been gone for quite some time. So we clearly see that Elsie is very fearful of Bernard. If you remember, Bernard is the one who captured her previously. So we see these characters regain friendship, if you will, once Elsie actually finds out that Bernard is a host. So then they try and investigate that bunker. Bernard says some interesting stuff here. So he says there's something here they've been working on a long time, which is obviously a reference to James Delos. So then we see them find the control printer, and they see that code that's not the normal code, so they're saying it's a different language. Then eventually we find out that what they're looking at is possibly James Delos' memories or brain or consciousness. And it all makes perfect sense because it's very similar to what we saw inside Abernathy. So Charlotte Hale is probably trying to take this consciousness of James Delos, the brain or the memories, and get them out of Westworld. So for me, it really makes sense now. So inside Abernathy is an encrypted version of James Delos' memories, his consciousness, and that is what they have to deliver to Delos. So now let's just quickly mention Bernard's flashbacks in this laboratory. So we see Bernard uploading something to a control unit printer. Then he puts that consciousness or whatever it is into his pocket. So this would all occur prior to the revolt, so the revolution. So this is before Ford dies. Now around this time as well, remember, Ford has been making a host body in another laboratory. And my assumption would be that this is Ford telling Bernard to go to this location, make this consciousness, and then bring it back. Now for me, my obvious choice here would be that it was actually Ford putting his own consciousness in one of these control units and then bringing it back to a body that he has made. It all does seem to make sense. It is the most obvious, but with Westworld, once again, take it all with a grain of salt because this could be completely misdirection. So we see Elsie and Bernard also find James Delos, and he's not in a good state at that point. This is a few days after William has left him to his own devices, and he's really gone off the deep end there. So some amazing questions that I've come away with from these scenes. I think some real interesting theories can be made from this situation. I guess let's start with the simple ones here. So some ideas, by all means, if you have some thoughts to these, put them in the comment section below. I'll love to read them. So who told Clementine to take Bernard to Elsie? That for me is a very intriguing one. Also, Bernard mentioned Ford had told Clementine to bring him here for a reason. So this suggestion there is that Ford is still making decisions. Once again, we've seen that throughout the season. Who was the second control unit for? It really does point to Ford. But once again, I'll cover this more in the theories video. And it also makes sense as well if Ford is alive in some capacity, for him to be making these constant, the host takeovers, you could say, talking to William like he is doing, and making these decisions in the park as well. Okay, so moving on to the next story arc within this episode. So the Man in Black, or Old William if you like, and Lawrence. So whilst not a lot happened, a massive change did occur within the character of the Man in Black, or Old William. He seemed to finally act for others, a good deed, but why? At that moment he was having flashbacks to his wife's suicide, so perhaps the game becoming real, the stakes are now real, perhaps this is a way of him dealing with that suicide. It is still a massive step forward for this character. I also love Ford's comments at the end of it as well, saying, "I know who you are, one good deal doesn't change that." And also the line, which I found very intriguing, is, "If you're looking forward, you're looking in the wrong direction," which to me would suggest looking back at historical events. What are your thoughts on that? Put that in the comments as well if you want. So, and finally, Grace and Stubbs meet. So not a massive amount of movement with these characters, but I guess we now know how Stubbs escaped. And we also know how Grace escaped. I guess the question I have from the scene with these characters, I'm not sure what the leader said. So the first of us, so the leader that they get taken to, he whispers something in Stubbs' ear. I just can't make out what it was. I think it was something like, "Only you found the last person who remembers you." But just the start is lost. I think the last bit is definitely the last person who remembers you. Did anyone else pick up that first few words there? Once again, put that in the comment section if you did. And also, Grace mentions to Stubbs, "I'm not looking to get out of here." So what is she looking for? Is she looking for her granddad, possibly, or something else? So that's really just a quick recap there. So all in all, this was my favourite episode of the season so far. I thought it was really incredible. I'm often blown away by the unexpected angles this show throws at us. Well, these ideas that do get thrown at us are quite often predicted with theories, but still was a marvellous episode. Great points to theorise on as well, so I'll work on that video over the next day. So if you're interested in hearing some of those theories I've come up with about this season so far and this episode specifically, check out the video which will hopefully come out tomorrow. So subscribe to check back in for that. But if you like this recap review, please give me a thumbs up and leave some comment below on any of the points I mentioned or just feedback as well. So until next time, this is Mesh and I'll see you later.